All right, welcome back. We are reading about the Electoral College, and we are reading about how it was reached through a compromise. And the Electoral College is the system on how the President of the United States is elected. This compromise was reached on September 6, 1787. The Articles of Confederation did not provide for a chief executive of the United States. There was no president when the United States was operated by the Articles of Confederation. Therefore, when delegates decided that a president was actually necessary, there was a disagreement over how that president should be elected to office. While some delegates felt that the president should be popularly elected, others feared that the electorate, the people, would not be informed enough to make that decision. The people who were creating our country literally thought that most people did not know enough to be able to choose their leaders. And to an extent, they did have some merit to that argument. Most people in those days could not read or write. So if news is spread by broadsides, by newspapers, by pamphlets, all things you must read, how do illiterate people, people who can't read and write, how do they operate? It's very different from today. The delegates came up with other alternatives, such as going through each state's Senate to elect the president. In the end, the two sides compromised with the creation of the Electoral College, which is made up of electors roughly proportional to population, but not exactly. Citizens vote for electors bound to a particular candidate, who then votes for the president. And this down here is a political cartoon, and it represents how much voting power certain states would have without the Electoral College. And this cartoon was made in 2019. Now, this is satire, so it's not accurate. It's basically exaggerating that California, Texas, New York, and Florida would completely dominate the election of the president if it was not for the Electoral College. And that's not completely true, but it's also not completely false. You see, if you look at the image above me, states receive their votes in the Electoral College by having their representatives in the United States House of Representatives added together with their Senate representation. Every state gets 2 senators because it's just fair. And in the House of Representatives, it's based on population. So a state like New York, which is about the same size as South Dakota, is going to have a lot more representatives because New York has New York City, and New York City is incredibly populated. So 27 U.S. representatives for New York plus 2 U.S. senators. South Dakota has 1 U.S. representative because the population there is so low, but they still have 2 U.S. senators, so they artificially get closer to New York's number than they would. 27 is 26 larger than 1. 27 plus 2 will be 29. 29 minus 3, there you go. The difference is a little bit closer. And if you take all the states together and you take this effect and you apply it to all the states, what you see is that since the most populated states usually argue, like California and Texas, California always goes blue, Texas normally goes red, Florida goes back and forth, New York almost always goes blue. That will be the Democratic side in today's elections. Liberal, Republican, liberal, conservative, back and forth, right? So the big states, they argue. That means that because of the Electoral College artificially increasing the worth of low populated states, if you're going to run for office today, you must not ignore the small states. If you don't have the Electoral College, to a large extent, you could ignore the small states like they didn't exist. And the small states in population terms are overwhelmingly the largest number of states. So the Electoral College was not created for this, but today the Electoral College makes the system more fair for smaller populated states. It also means it makes it less fair for large populated states, because this means that it is possible for a state, for the country, to have one candidate with the popular vote lose and one candidate win the Electoral College, because you just have to get the overwhelming majority in the Electoral College to win. There's one more image at the bottom of this paper, and basically what it says is that before the election, anyone who's running for president will choose potential electors in each state. Election day, popular vote. And then after the election, based on the popular vote, electors are sent, and those electors vote for the president. That way, the system is satisfied. If you have any confusion on this topic, I very much encourage you to look this up, go research on your own and try to figure it out. A lot of people do not understand the importance of the Electoral College, and a lot of people disagree with it. A lot of people love it. It's a very contentious, argumentative topic, and I very much encourage you to go out there and learn for yourself. So, hope this has been helpful.